Welcome to my video on how I darn my socks. As you can see, I have a sock here that has a hole in the toe. I find they commonly wear there and often well before the rest of the sock has any wear. So I do like to darn them to get them to last a bit longer. First thing when darning in this sort of area is it's good to have a solid support behind where you're sewing. I use a wooden egg, which was obtained cheaply at the craft store. You can buy specific darning mushrooms designed for that purpose, but they're a lot more expensive, or just use anything solid that you can push into the sock or area you're darning, pushing behind and giving a solid surface like so. With a sock like this, which is obviously fairly light cotton, I use a cotton thread. I have a number of embroidery threads that I use. This is half a strand, so 3 strands from a 6-strand embroidery cotton. You can also use wool if you're darning a wool sock, whatever seems to suit. You may like to match the colour to the sock or do a contrast. I've chosen a contrast today so that you can see more easily what I'm doing, but what you prefer is up to you. Now, to start off, I'm going to sew a solid band across the underside here that will provide an anchoring to the stitching I'm going to follow up with. To do that, I simply start taking a stitch through a small area like so, and I'm not going to tie a knot or fasten it in any way that can leave a lump. What I'm going to do is leave an end section about that long and then fold it back along the direction I'm going to be sewing, and that's going to get sewn in under the stitching as I go. The stitch I use is basically a back stitch, but with stretch fabric I like to do a little bit of zigzag. So I'll go from the bottom and then across towards the top. And as you can see, I'm pulling the thread along underneath where I'm stitching. And then from the bottom towards the top. Unlike a normal back stitch, I'm not trying to match up the ends so that it's a completely straight line, but I am moving backwards so it's covering the same area. Now you can see as I sew that the fabric does tend to move a bit. That's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. The hole itself isn't a completely regular size, so this method will allow you to take account for a lot of those variations as you sew as well. Now I'm just going to do that last stitch there, and that's the base stitching done, and I'll just trim the end off. And we're ready to start with the main body of the stitching. Now what I'm going to be doing is creating basically a netting stitch that's going to cover the area, and instead of being straight as a lot of darning is, this is creating a series of interlocking loops. most important thing is not to pull all of the stitches extremely tight as you go. You're going to be grabbing them and pulling them into the next row. So as you go around, you take the needle under the first row and create a loop like so. Exactly how large the loop is will vary a bit depending on your preference and what you're actually sewing into, but what we're aiming to do is create a row of loose loops. Now as I've been working, the way the holes moved means that the line really isn't matching up. That's okay. You can always just increase a little bit here, taking through some of the fabric, and create an extra loop. Now you will note that I did sew through the fabric of the sock in this row. From now on it's only going to be done on the edges, and when I finally reach the top, the rest will be sewing only through these loops that we've formed as the base here. To continue, you basically need to do the same process in reverse. You can see now that we're getting quite close to the top of the hole. Because this is stretchy, this will actually pull up, so I'm going to do this as the last row, which means I'll be sewing and catching the sock along each stitch as I go. It is important as you do this to reduce the stretch of the sock across your support at the back, otherwise you'll be pulling the stitches tight as you go rather than allowing the whole of the sock to close. And there you can see we have a netting stitch which is across the entire hole. Does allow stretch rather than being too solid. You have a choice now. I find that just leaving it open like this, at least in that position on the toe, works perfectly well. But you can, if you like, go through, do another row of loops over the top of the existing ground there, and that will close up some of the holes. Otherwise, just finish off by running the thread underneath the edging of the loops so that it won't come undone, and you've finished darning your sock.